So this is a tutorial all about how to do the front pockets of the Meriam trousers if you're using the flex waistband. It'll be a little bit different than you're used to because of our innovative waistband, but with this tutorial you will totally be able to do it. If you want a full tutorial of the entire trousers, you can sign up for our Pants Making for Curves workshop, which takes you from the beginning to the very end of every step of the trousers and has lots of other tips, including how to do fitting. To find out more, go to cashmerette.com/pants workshop. Okay, so now let's finish the front pockets for the View A Flex waistband. So we have our number 1 front, we've got our top pocket number 7 on the back here already. So we're going to flip it over and we are going to take the 5 and 6 unit that we already had and we are going to flip it over and right sides together, pin it to number 7. Okay, so we're going to match the notches. Notch there. Okay. So we are going to sew, but we are going to start at the notch here and we are going to go down and round. So we are not sewing here. We are starting sewing at this top notch and it's going to be at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, depending on if you're sewing the right leg or the left leg, you may start at this end or you may start at this end. I'm going to start here and I'm going to end at this notch. When you're doing the other side, you'll likely be doing it in reverse. So I'm going to do that right now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a bit more into this notch. So this notch will have been fairly small, but I now want to cut all the way up to the stitching line, just shy of it. I don't want to cut the actual stitching, but I want to get right up to the very end. There we go. So this is now cut here. Now what we're going to do is finish from here to here. Finish the seam allowance from here to here. So this seam allowance is now finished. Now is where it gets quite different from what you might be used to. So I'm going to trim the seam allowance of 5, only 5, not 7 underneath. And I'm going to start at 1/2 inch in here, and I'm going to end at the outer corner here. So you will actually be able to see in the diagrams, in the instructions, I think in some ways it's probably the clearest, but I'm basically just cutting a wedge off here. We have our product lead, Jen, for figuring out all of this very unusual construction. So now when we flip it up, it looks like this. So you're actually seeing a little bit of the underneath. Now I'm going to cut a piece of bias tape that's about 1.5 inches longer than this edge. So that's what we're going to be doing. We are going to be binding this edge. This is why we are doing video on this, because it's not that obvious when you do an instruction diagram. But I think when you see this, it's like, oh, okay, I get that. So I have some made bias here. So I'm just going to say, okay, the 1.5 inches is like a rough thing. Like you just want more than the length. Okay. And this is bias that is 1.5 inches wide. And I've already folded it into quarters. So you initially fold the edges to the middle and press, and then you fold it in half and press. So this is how bias is usually, you finish, you get to this point. But with the application that we're doing, it's easier to start at this point. So what we are now going to do is enclose this edge as if it's one seam. And because of the clipping that we've done, it enables us to go straight across at the end. So going to put it in here. Now you want to try and get this accurate, not because it matters so much for construction, just because you don't want the bias to like slip off and end up not being fully secured in. So I'm enclosing it. Use as many pins as you like. This is actually quite a good use for like Wonder tape if you haven't already used it. It's a double-sided sticky tape made for sewing, and it basically washes out. That's kind of the key point about it, is that it washes out when you wash the garment. And in many ways it's better than pins, because pins only occasionally are securing the pieces together, whereas Wonder Tape is doing it constantly. You can also reposition it quite easily. I mean, it gets a little mucky on your fingers sometimes, but you can reposition it. So if you haven't done it perfectly, you can do it again. So Wonder Tape, also great if you're a beginner, because it really does stop things shifting. Okay, so you can see that I have enclosed that whole seam, that whole edge, as if it's one edge. So now I am going to edge stitch it onto the fabric. So I'm going to sew just inside the edge of the bias to make sure it goes in. You want to make sure though that you're hitting the front and the back. So if you go along and then you turn it over and you haven't enclosed the back, you either want to unpick and do it again, or you can just do it again. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I have sewn that bias tape on. I need to get rid of the little pieces. And so what you can see is there's the bias tape. And now when it folds up, let's line everything up here. Fold the 7 nicely, fold this on top, and down a little bit. So you have to get all the things layered up. So what you can see is it's forming this little sort of hole here. And this is what's allowing the flex waistband to work. So you're gonna trim the tops. There we go. And now we are going to baste the upper section just so that it doesn't come out. Now, you're not basting through the whole thing. So you're not basting through this, you're just basting through here. So I'm going to just put a pin there and baste through. Then I am going to baste through everything at the side seam. So you want to make sure that the side seam pieces are all flat. So if you open it up to the right side, that's the easiest way to see. So this is all folding in so that we have a smooth line here and a smooth pocket here. And we're going to just be basting this bit shut. So I'm just going to do that. Okay. So that is how you insert the front pocket of the Meriam trousers if you are doing the flex waistband. You'd now repeat that whole process for the second side and then carry on. Remember, if you would like more tutorials like this, where I take you through every step of these trousers, you can do that by signing up for our full workshop at cashmerette.com/pantsworkshop.